Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I have my subframe set up here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sand it down just to give something for the undercoat paint I'm going to repaint it with to bite on. The reason for that is that when you touch this, I mean, it just feels like bare metal. I mean, it's scratched through right here. It's bare metal. It's very thin paint, and I don't want it to rust. Because that's all I need is some rock chips hitting this, and then and then it getting wet, and then it's going to rust. I'm going to run into the same problem I have, 10 years from now. So, to prevent that and prolong the life of this subframe, I'm going to use undercoat paint here. I got a couple cans of it. It says that you can use it on the bare metal or a primered surface. This is pretty much like a real thin primer. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and sand it down, give it something to bite to. That way it'll stick to the this paint and to the metal itself, and do the paint the whole thing in undercoat paint to hopefully stop any further issues. I'm going to use 320 grit and just paint right over it, because I'm not looking for obvious paint job quality paint like this. I'm just looking for something to rough up the metal and the paint that's already on here. So this is wet or dry. The reason I'm using wet or dry, it's more expensive, but I'm using this because this is what I have. Otherwise I just use plain old sandpaper. I'm going to be careful when I go around some of these holes. That way when I paint around it, actually look at that, that's interesting. See? Inspect your parts before you put them on. Here's one reason. There's extra pieces of metal hanging around on it. So I'm going to I'm going to go around real careful with these when I paint it, because I don't want to clog it up too much, and this one actually has threads in it. So I'm actually probably going to plug this or stick something in there to make sure that I don't get undercoat paint in there, because this stuff's pretty thick. And then go from there. Yeah, see, it's scratched all the way down to the metal right here too. I'm also going to go ahead and look over all these bolts, make sure they're all tight before I paint it. Make sure it's good to go before we start actually doing any work to it. It's kind of like if you ever have any experience building a model car, whenever you take a piece off of the tree that they come on, you go over the piece before you start gluing it to other things to make sure you're getting the quality. And it's especially true with with your car. Auto body shops typically don't go over this much detail, because it's not their car. They don't really care. They're just trying to make the money and get you out the door. But this is, of course, my car, and I'm going to make sure that it's as perfect as I can get it as far as quality. Luckily, it came with these little rubber boots right here, so the threads right here I don't have to be too concerned about spraying with the undercoat paint, because they're covered. So, alright, as you can see, I sanded it down here. I have a couple things to say about this subframe here. If you're watching this video because you're interested in replacing yours, do not mount this on your car without sanding it and painting it. It is incredible. This is supposed to be a ready-to-mount kit. You're supposed to be able to take it home. If you already have your old subframe off, mount it on your car and drive away in a few hours. But this paint is so thin. I put very, very little pressure on this just to rough the paint up a little bit. Was all I was trying to achieve. I wasn't trying to strip the paint at all or do anything like that. But very, very light pressure. You can see this is bare metal, and that's everywhere. I mean, I would say if you mounted this on your car before you sanded it down or didn't paint it or whatever, you just mounted it on your vehicle, mounted it on your vehicle and then drove it every day, after the first winter, it'd be completely rusted. Not rusted through, but it'd be covered in rust. I mean, this came from Mini Sport, and I'm not trying to advertise or anything, but everything I've gotten from them is very quality, I mean, everything is OEM or better. In most cases, better. But this here, if this is how it came out of the factory, I can understand why mine is completely falling apart. So I'm just going to stress it again. Do not mount this on your car without sanding it and painting it. I mean, everything was bare metal and they just did a quick spray on it. You can even tell by the bolts. The bolts had the same paint as the subframe. So everything was bare metal. They just welded it, did a quick spray. I mean, the thickest part of the paint was there was a run on the inside of the subframe, and that was the thickest part of the paint. The sticker that was on it was probably more protective than the paint that was actually on it. So, yep, I'm gonna go ahead and paint it, and then I'll get back with you. I might actually do a little quick tutorial on just a real quick paint with the undercoat, and then it's just like a normal spray paint, but I'll do it anyway, just in case you're unfamiliar with it, and then we'll go from there. Alright, we're back here. Make sure when you're using undercoat paint, whether you're using a spray can or if you have a spray booth and you're using an air gun, make sure you mix the paint very well. In a spray can, that means shake it vigorously for probably 5 minutes. The reason being it's a very thick paint. You don't know how long it's been sitting on the shelf. You want to make sure it's completely mixed, especially when it comes to a project like this. So you want to make sure it's done and done right the first time. Alright, so it's like I said, it's like normal paint. So when you're doing your paint, you usually want to keep it about 8 to 12 inches away from the body panel or whatever it is you're painting, and just smooth sweeping motions and back and forth. Try to make it as even as possible instead of holding the button down and just going in a straight line all the way down it. It's going to wind up with runs and uneven and uncovered places. After you're done sanding, let me go back a step. After you're done sanding, go ahead and give it a hose down, dry it off, run a microfiber cloth over it, make sure there's no debris on it from when you were sanding it. There's going to be a lot of paint powder and stuff like that. The only two places that I saw I needed to really cover up, of course, were the rubber grommets, which already has them, cool, and those two little holes up front that I said that had threads in earlier. I didn't see any more holes with threads, and there was a couple extra pieces of metal I went ahead and clipped off and sanded down. All the bolts were tight. No, I stand corrected. One of them was loose, so I tightened it down. Yep, so here we go with this. Alright, sorry for the shaking. I'm trying to shake the can and hold the camera at the same time. So here's your body panel. You got your can, 8 to 12 inches. Says about 8. And you're just going to do nice, smooth sweeping motions. You don't want to hold it down and go all the way across. That's how you wind up with runs and uncovered spots and all that fun stuff. So, I'm going to go ahead and do this, and I'll get back with you. Alright, this is a couple coats later. It's fully covered on this side. I still have to turn it over. Get any problem spots and then go over it again just in case and look for anything I might have missed or anything like that. The paint is pretty thick. This, in my opinion, this is how you should be able to buy it, and it should just come like this, but you know, way to make money, especially for how expensive this thing is. Right now I'm in Europe and it's still, you know, 300-400 euro part. It also comes with a subframe mounting kit. It's got rubber bushings, bolts, washers, all the stuff I need to put it on my car. So that's good. And if I need to cut any old bolts off as they're rusted on or whatever, I don't really have to worry about it too much because I already have all new ones. But this is pretty much what it looks like. It's not going to have a perfectly smooth paint job because this, of course, is undercoat paint. Just it's thicker, and this is what it looks like. So I'll go ahead and turn it over, paint it on that side, and then we'll go ahead and start with the disassembling the old one and assembling the new one. As I said before, I'm going to take all the old stuff off the car, the suspension and everything first before I even touch the subframe. and then I'll put all my old parts, well, I'll refurbish all the old parts, and then put them on the new subframe, and then I'll mount everything together. So, if you are interested in keep on watching those videos, if you have any questions, definitely please ask. And if you have any suggestions, please, I mean, everybody can learn something from everybody, so, well, everybody can learn something from somebody, so post any suggestions that you might have too, anything you saw that I might have done wrong or you would have done differently or anything like that. Stay in touch.